Welcome to the Empowered Life podcast with Dustin Vaughn Warncke. Join Dustin as your guide to learning about unlocking your life's ultimate potential. Through inspiring conversations with special guests and proven wisdom, Dustin explores the interconnected values of personal growth, professional success, and a wholesome life filled with love and light. This show is based on tactical and practical concepts for life's greatest successes and achieving your goals, while also being full of inspiration to help you live your best life right now. Discover how to cultivate a mindset of empowerment, achieve success, and create a meaningful impact on the world around you, all while living with purpose, meaning, and significance. Dustin is a former associate publisher of Texas Fish and Game magazine, the author of over 10 books, owner of his own digital marketing agency, an outdoor TV show host, a video and podcast producer. And he will also become one of your best friends forever. Now, get ready to get inspired to live in gratitude. Here's your host, Dustin Vaughn Warncke.
What's up, guys? It's your buddy Dustin Vaughn Warncke, your humble host here. And I am so excited to be with you today. I am driving again, hands-free, of course. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit of, well, business and personal, experience on this particular podcast episode. The main reason is because one thing I've kind of coined myself in what I do for business, and really in my personal life too, with helping people and those kind of things, is calling myself the resident Greaseman. What does that mean? It doesn't mean like that I'm, trudging through the banks of Normandy with a grease gun, as they did in World War II. But no, I coined this term from the movie Ocean's 11, the new version that came out, I think, circa 2003, early 2000s. The one with George Clooney and Brad Pitt and, that whole cast. That was basically a remake of the original Ocean's 11 with the Rat Pack, which was, I don't remember the whole Rat Pack. My son actually recited the Rat Pack to me when we were sitting down at a restaurant the other day, and there was a picture of the people like Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. on the wall, and he could name all of them. I don't know where he learned that from, but good for him. But anyway, this version of Ocean's 11, the remake of it, I guess the first one, because there's been a lot after that. There's a little Chinese guy named the Amazing Chin, and he is part of their team of this casino heist. So basically, just to give a short story without any spoilers, the plan of this movie is trying to heist like 3 different casinos that all share one vault, I think, if I remember. It's one of the most perfect movies I think that was ever made as far as, kind of casino heist, kind of movie. And just in general, it's one of my favorite movies because there are a lot of life lessons in that movie. But basically, they're evaluating, all right, Brad Pitt and George Clooney in this movie are evaluating who they're going to use for their kind of internal vault guy, the guy that they put inside of an actual, like, moving vault or money container or whatever. And they basically put him inside of this vault with an air tank, and slide him in. He's kind of the Trojan horse, if you will, They get him in, and then once he's inside of the vault, inside of this money, roller container, that he basically does, what he does as far as getting everybody into the vault. All right, so they watch him do some acrobatic things as they're evaluating him. And they're kind of saying, okay, what he did just now is not that impressive. And then he does this amazing acrobatic leap, I think, or some kind of a jump. And they were like, yep, we got our Greaseman. So they termed him a Greaseman. So what is a Greaseman? You can look this up on Wikipedia, or probably not Wikipedia, but maybe the Urban Dictionary. The Greaseman is the guy that gets it done. The guy that gets in the inside from the outside through whichever way he has to do things, And I've helped recover Facebook accounts. I've helped, smooth over customer situations, PR work, jumped on some grenades, so to speak, in my work and personal life. Just with using, tactical empathy, as I talk about a lot. And my whole book is based on tactical empathy, and the new one that's coming out called Business from the Heart, which basically makes a point that we make our decisions on buying and a lot of other things on feeling or emotion, not on logic or thinking. And there's a big difference between those two. So I have been, kind of deemed myself, and my customers now call me the resident Greaseman because I'm resident to them. But like the whole idea is that I get in and get things done that other people can't. And I'm not bragging on myself or whatever. I've learned how to become this person, I'm proud of it. But at the same time, it's not that hard to learn human emotion and human wiring across the board if you study it a little bit. I've been a student of psychology when it comes to business and personal relationships my whole life, or really my whole adult life. I started my own business when I was 12 years old. I was very ambitious growing up. And then, throughout high school and college, I was always the guy that kind of, helped other people, get things done. But then I graduated college and decided I did not want to become a high school or middle school band director, which is what I had trained to do, and went into sales. And I found a tape set that my stepdad had bought at a library sale or something, one of these closeout things where they kind of let go of books that books and audio. Well, we had audiobooks back then on tape, books on tape. That was a big deal back then, in the late 90s and early 2000s. And he got me a $2 Brian Tracy Psychology of Selling set. Like, it was like a tape set, and I had a tape deck back then, a lot of us did. In the vehicle I was driving, and I would drive around all day while I was selling and learn the psychology of selling. But it deals with human psychology. It's all based on psychology. The whole human emotion is based on psychology, and I've always been a student of that. In fact, one of the things I started majoring in when I started college, before I was kind of coaxed into becoming a music major at the music school there, Texas Lutheran University, go Bulldogs, was psychology and theology. I wanted to be, either a psychologist, which, with a bachelor's degree, you don't get very far. I've got a couple of clients that have doctorates in social work or psychology itself, Psych Ds. And, you don't really get paid until you get a master's or become an LPC, like a counselor or anything like that in psychology. So the bachelor of psychology thing was just going to be a stepping stone for me to get into seminary. That was my main thing, but I never felt the call to seminary. I did feel the call to business and fell in love with marketing and how the human mind perceives things, whether they're on paper, whether they're digital, on websites. I've been building websites since the late 90s. Back when we had to code everything from scratch. That's how I learned how to code. At least some things, or at least read code and those kind of things, and see what's wrong and what's right. And I troubleshoot a lot of stuff as a result of those days, and finding my calling of the time, and really still is my calling today.
In a quarter mile, turn left onto I-35 North Frontage Road.
That is me trying to, become the person that I wanted to be. And that's just studying. Like, this was independent study. I didn't go to college for psychology. I took some psychology classes and kind of learned the basics of things, but the way that we are wired as humans is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely so cool to watch, to see somebody's reaction when you present something. And you can read and kind of get the temperature of that person. You can read and kind of get the feeling of that person, okay? If they're unsure, if they're apprehensive, if they're positive, if they're negative, And that's one of the things I just learned how to do naturally, and I've learned from some of the people that have learned how to do it naturally that don't even know they have this gift, okay? And that's kind of cool. One of my friends, Danny Barry, who I might have on this podcast one of these days. I keep on threatening I was going to put him on my other podcast, which is The Best of the Outdoors, since it's he runs a couple of outdoor businesses. But him and I are working on a couple of invention projects and have been for years now. And I helped him start a LLC and get patents and everything else.
In 600 feet, turn left onto I-35 North Frontage Road.
On this whole thing. And so basically,
at the light, turn left onto I-35 North
By
Frontage
the way,
Road.
I apologize if my GPS is coming through on this recording, but it's talking to me right now, telling me where I need to turn. Again, I'm hands-free. I'm safe.
In half a mile, use the left lane to take the I-35 North ramp.
Basically, I learned, he is a master at this and didn't even realize that he's a master of this, because he has this presence about him that he just naturally has, kind of a confidence, not an arrogance, not a like a chauvinistic thing, but as a business owner and as a person, he knows who he is. Like, there's no question.
North ramp,
he goes through hard times like we do too, like all of us on this show. But he's very proactive with, feeling like he can walk away from a situation. He taught me how to sell deer a long time ago, which is not like whitetail deer, but like exotic deers like axis and black buck antelope.
Continue for 110
fallow,
miles.
Those kind of things. Those kind of exotic deer. We have a ton of those in Texas. We're kind of the exotic capital of the world here in Texas. So, I just recently had to fire 3 people, 2 from my business and one from his business, that I brought to the table, that I brought in to mentor. And I had to do all that in one day, in one weekend. And that was tough because I've never really had to fire anybody before, to tell you the truth. And I did it in such a way where it was diplomatic and tactical, empathy, using tactical empathy to do those things. I've had situations with, roofing like a couple of roofing contractors I work for.
There's a stalled vehicle ahead.
That basically, they've come through and said, hey, we need your help on this situation to smooth this over, as kind of the outsider coming in. And I come in and kind of just do my thing. I kind of equate it to, there's a movie with William H. Macy years ago came out, probably about the same time Ocean's 11 did, called The Cooler. And this guy had such bad luck. So this is kind of the opposite of this, but just kind of a comparison. This guy had such bad luck that he could walk by a table that was hot, so to speak. And we all know what that is if you've ever been, by a blackjack table or a poker table or anything like that, where people are winning. That table is hot. That's where you want to be. That's where the action's happening. That's where the kind of like the slots being loose. That's kind of like the big deal. And so I'm basically called in to be the cooler of the situation, not with bad luck, with good luck. And there is no real luck in that respect in some cases. It's just, hard work makes luck, and just learning this stuff, learning how to be tactically empathetic, learns these things, understanding the other person before the other person understands you, listening well, being an active listener, seeking first to understand, then to be understood, that kind of stuff. So, I've really learned, how to gauge those situations and how to respond, not react. There's no heated conversations that I have very often at all, because I always use what I've talked about before on this show as the midnight radio voice, which I learned from Chris Voss in his book, Never Split the Difference, which is a book about negotiation and human empathy, tactical empathy, those kind of things, what he teaches. Former FBI hostage negotiator, and this guy negotiated for people's lives, not to be taken by these hostage takers, one of the first things that he likes to say in his book, and I think I may have mentioned this on a previous episode, I'm not sure. I woke up a couple hours ago, so I'm still getting my coffee in me. But basically, the thing is, if a hostage taker knows the name of his hostages or hostage that he is planning to kill, the likelihood is high that he's not going to shoot them or kill them in whatever way. The likelihood is that he's not going to lay a finger on them or have that desire to hurt them or harm them in any way, because it becomes personal to him. So one of the tips I'm going to give you on this show is use the other person's name when a situation gets heated. Okay? Because people love hearing their own name. There's no secret in psychology about that. It's just the way that it is. Use their name when you're addressing them. And you know what? I add a little bit of flavor to that too, as a matter of fact. If it's somebody that's older than me, or it's somebody that has a doctorate or, anything like that, I will address them accordingly, professor, doctor, whatever the case may be, Mr., Mrs., whatever. If they're older than me especially, and I'm 45 at the time I'm recording this, I will utilize their name with a pronoun, with a preface in front of it, a prefix in front of it. And sometimes their full name, because it gets their attention and they realize that you're actually listening to them and you're engaging in a way that they want to respond to you in a positive manner and resolve the situation. If you come in there, like I see so many business deals and personal relationships go wrong, just go completely like sideways, because you let negative emotion especially, get involved, and like everything goes crazy for everybody. And who wants that? Who wants that? You know, that's not the way that it should be. You know, and so that's the thing. You have to stay calm, and you, as the person in the conversation, have to stay in control, which is why you use a calm voice like what I'm using with you now, kind of the deep late night radio voice. Men and women can both do this. The whole idea is that you're remaining calm. That other person could be flopping to the floor and foaming to the mouth. I don't know. You know, I mean, just with just rage, you know. But you don't get rage, you know. You just chill. You just act totally chill. And you remain calm. And let them flop to the floor and foam to the mouth all they want to. Okay? So, you know, that's the question. How do you handle, like we talked about that on a previous show that aired on this podcast, about what do you do when a situation goes sideways? Well, you remain in control, you remain calm, and you utilize their name. And I've done this, I've de-escalated situations on text messages, which is really hard to do because it's hard to read tone on text messages. That's getting easier now with some of the technology and tools that we have these days. But you know, you basically remain in control, remain calm, and use their name. And you know, in an email or anything like that, you state your point, you state the facts, you state your perspective, but your perspective has got to be based on facts. If you've done something wrong, you better admit it. All right, that's one of the first things you'll know about me if you ever meet me in person, is the fact that I will take accountability and responsibility for a lot of situations where I don't necessarily have to. And it's okay, because like I'm not admitting fault in that case, but I'm taking accountability that we're going to find a solution to this situation. I'm taking accountability on behalf of whoever I'm representing in a company or in a personal situation. That hey, you know, in some cases we messed up. You know, in some cases, like, I don't know what to, you know, how do I make this right for you? You know, how do I make this right for you? And I think one time I'm going to just read some of my text messages on this show, you know, to kind of show how I do it on a text, to kind of show how I do it on an email, just to kind of show how I do it over the phone. I really wanted to record some of my phone calls, but I got to have permission to do that. But, you know, when somebody calls the roofing company and they're upset that there's a leak in their roof, you know, which is one of the things that I do sometimes, is answer the phones for one of the roofing companies I work for, you know, I can de-escalate that situation before it ever becomes a situation. Because one thing you'll learn about human nature, if it's no big deal to you, it becomes no big deal to them eventually. All right? And eventually people, yeah, they get over it. So you can always have this attitude, like some people do, especially some business people I've worked with. They're like, oh yeah, I know I ticked them off, but you know, they'll get over it. And I'm like, well, again, did you resolve their conflict? You know, did you work towards resolving their conflict, or did you just tell them to just go, you know, jump in the lake? And it's really about how you make people feel with your feelings and your words. And I have been told many, many, many times, your words are so powerful, you know, whether they're used for, you know, not manipulating a situation, eliciting emotion out of a situation. I don't say manipulating at all, because, like, and that wasn't even a Freudian slip on that one. It's basically just a way to say, you know, controlling the situation, all right, being in control of the situation, not manipulating anybody. But I guess if you look at it in a way, it is a way of manipulating somebody's emotions to be able to get them where you need to be, to not split the difference, to get all that you want out of this, which may be a 5-star Google review, it may be a solution to a problem, whatever the case may be. If you handle it right, and there's no right or wrong way to handle it a lot of times, but if you handle it with the tools that I just taught you on here, staying calm, using their name, you know, those kind of things. If you use, you know, those kind of tips that I just taught, you know, to help you, you know, stay in control, use the radio show voice, you know, the midnight radio DJ voice and everything, you're going to come out okay. You know, you're going to come out just fine, because they, a lot of times, you know, the other party who's upset and flopping to the floor and foaming to the mouth, they don't know how to respond when you're not as upset as they are. Now, I'm going to give you another piece of advice. You've got to be very careful how you use this, okay? When it comes to situations where you're trying to get something to happen on the other side, there is a time and a place to make people sweat a little bit, okay? And kind of, turn the screws, if you will. But I'm not saying to do this in every case. There are only certain special cases that need this. I taught this to one of the kids that I mentored. Not kids, but I guess he's, in his early 30s. But he's younger than me. He's 15 years younger than me. And, I taught this tactic to this one guy. He started using it everywhere. And he made people feel really uncomfortable and was really disliked by the industry. That's one of the guys I had to eventually fire from one of the companies I work with. Because I'm pretty entrenched in that company. You don't use it everywhere. But at some point, you can kind of like be able to walk away, If the situation isn't going to solve, if it isn't going to be resolved, that's one thing I learned from Danny Berry is like you walk away or you at least offer to exit the conversation. And then you'll get to see if somebody's done talking to you or if they want to continue further, either spewing their emotions or, or resolving the matter, whatever it is. So I use this a lot in sales. So for instance, the worst thing salespeople do in any kind of conversation, and I know how to handle just about any sales call that comes into me, because the worst thing that most salespeople do is they act needy. Okay, they lower their status. You can never lower your status in a situation like that. You are either an equal or you are above the situation. Okay, and that's not saying put yourself above everybody else. All this other stuff like it's some kind of arrogance. Okay, that's not the case at all. But like you don't need them. You don't need their sale. You're there to help and provide a solution. If they don't want it, then that's on them, and that's the way you frame the perspective of what you're doing, okay? So I'll give you an example like that. There could be $10,000 of animals on the line, which I've done deals like that in my sleep. I do a lot of big ticket deals for the exotic industry. As far as I'm not talking Tiger King. I like I said earlier, life like antelope and fallow deer and that kind of stuff. But that industry, I always warn everybody that I'm buying or selling to is full of a den of thieves. Okay, there are a lot of guys that are either getting ready to screw people or are getting screwed. So I always represent myself as head and shoulders above everybody else. That I have something called integrity, and actually those are the words I use. I have something called integrity in this business. I have a reputation to protect because of my public profile figure. I don't make a big deal about that. I'm pretty humble about all that I've accomplished. But like I said, if they don't feel comfortable with me, heck, check out my Facebook page or Google me. I've done all the things that I've got on my profile and my bio and my links and everything. Like those are all me. Most of them I've done for myself and by myself. And websites or podcasts or whatever. Go check me out. See if I'm full of beans, see if I'm somebody that's not worth dealing with, because I built that reputation over years. You Google my name, you'll find exactly what I want you to see. Okay, you Google Dustin Vaughn Warncke right now, you will see exactly what I want you to see. There's nothing like I have organized it that way, so that way there's no questions about who I am and who they're dealing with. So that's part of the deal. What happens if somebody Googles your name? You ever ask yourself that question? You ever Google yourself? Again, the resident Greaseman always has an ace in the hole. He always has an ability to be in control of the situation in a calm manner, but also to not take anybody's BS, to not take anybody's crap in return. All right? I will not tolerate being yelled to. I will not tolerate, somebody completely losing their, the conversation is over at that point. All right, somebody calls me and starts, berating me and that kind of stuff. It's just better that we part as friends. But I'm going to make everything right in the meantime. And that doesn't happen to me often because I'm pretty on top of my A game most of the time. But here lately, last couple of months, I have had some things that have fallen behind, I've had to make some really tactical decisions to hire people and fire people. Everybody comes into your life for a reason. I really believe manifest destiny, everything that Marcus Aurelius talked about. He was one of the Roman emperors, wrote a book called, I believe, Meditations. It's a really good book to read. Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor, probably 2,000 years ago, around the time of Jesus Christ, Yeshua. So, but he kind of wrote these private writings, and, well, they published it into a book. It probably didn't really, mean for them to publish it into a book when he wrote those, but they're really good musings, and that's one of the things that he talks about as well. So, anyway, that all being said, there's a lot of room to be able to, give somebody grace, give somebody mercy, and thank somebody for their grace and mercy. Those are the two words that I use. Thank you. If I've messed up or a company's messed up and I'm brought in to be the grease man, so to speak, to make things happen, to make things work, to smooth things over, I say, thank you for your grace, your mercy, and sometimes I say for your understanding and your patience. Those four things. Grace, mercy, understanding, patience, because everybody knows what those words mean. And we all know that any of us that walk in any kind of faith walk, that God is merciful, that, as it says in Romans, I believe, God's mercies are new every day. It's the best thing we have going for us as humans, being created by a creator, is that God's mercies are new every day, and I'm a living, walking, talking testimony of that, because I've done some stupid things, but at the same time, I've recovered from those things, and I've learned my way, and God has a way of teaching you the lesson until you learn it, So one thing I've emerged from is becoming a master at human emotion, a master at smoothing over situations like this, okay? And it's nothing that I hang my hat on or anything like that. It's nothing that I, boast about, but I'm just saying that I'm trying to teach you, who's listening to this, who I consider a close friend. I consider you, everybody that listens to this is, I'm your best friend forever, reach out to me, call me, text me, whatever, my phone number's everywhere. And then my websites, you can send me an email or whatever. Like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions. Hey, what do I do in this situation? Because every situation is going to be different. There's not one way to handle every situation, except for kind of the groundwork that we discovered on this podcast about, the things we talked about to help de-escalate a situation, okay? And I've seen customer service people do this well. I've had customer service people that I've challenged, like at one particular large domain host company that I work with that has a team overseas, and I get a guy on the line and he's sitting there going, well, I think this and this could be this and this kind of is this, and I said, I just challenged him and I said, I really don't think you know what you're talking about. And all of a sudden the phone hangs up, like the phone call drops. I wonder why. I challenged him. He was not comfortable. I made him sweat. But the thing is, that wasn't a bad thing. I was just trying to get a hold of somebody that could do it. That was the point of me making that comment. Well, the point is if you don't know, then find out from somebody who does. I worked with one business owner. May have been the worst human I've ever worked with in my life. And he frequently used a phrase, that I don't use often. But when he wanted to get something out of somebody, he would often say, I'm not interested in your excuses, I'm interested in your results. That's another sweat term, sweat phrase. Basically that's holding somebody's feet to the fire. And there's a time and a place for that, but not everywhere. You want to treat situations like that they go sideways, that you're brought in to smooth over, or that you're trying to smooth over yourself, with grace and humility, okay? Humility, humble yourself, but don't lower your status. Like I said, the worst thing that salespeople do, well, let me know when you're available next week. No. You got to reframe the perspective. Let's check our schedules for next week to see what's a good fit for both of us, because I don't want to waste your time or mine. That would be an applicable, response to something like that, okay? Not lowering your status, okay? In an email, like I've learned from Jeremy Minor, another person that I'm basing this book around, and his NEPQ, I think, or whatever his training is. He's on YouTube all over the place. There's a ton of free sales training. I've mentioned it before. MINER, Jeremy Minor. He's got a bunch of YouTube shorts you can watch, and I think he's on, all the other social platforms with shorts and stuff too. But little quick hits that I've kind of learned these things from. He says, one of the worst things you can say in an email is, been trying to call you, been trying to reach you, like, you're needy for their business. No. I have tried to reach you a few times, but I haven't heard back. ... Okay, you can put as many dots as you want to after that. Just don't be excessive. And, where do we go from here? And that's it. That's all you say. See if you get a response that way if somebody's been avoiding you. Where do we go from here? Because at that point, you're not lowering your status for that other person. And certainly, if you're in control of a situation, you have to be above or equal status to the person that's irate or, upset or whatever, feels like they've been, done wrong. You've got to be in that space to be able to say, hey, this is not an easy situation. We may have messed up. How do we make this right? Where do we go from here? It's an open-ended question. You're inviting them into the narrative of how do I make this right for you to make you satisfied with our product or service, or in a personal relationship, where do we go from here with, rekindling this relationship? I recently had to rekindle a relationship, and that was my question to my friend that I had to rekindle with, that I had to break a kind of an unhealthy attachment to. It was a personal relationship. Where do you and I go from here? Like, what does our relationship look like now? Do we still trust each other? Do we still love each other? In that sense, and are we still best friends forever? Whatever the case may be. So anyway, I'm not going to go on and on and on about all this stuff, but I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of how I am brought in to handle cases that are very difficult situations that come from an outside perspective. And that's the way you really have to do this. I'm going to leave you with this little nugget here, okay? This little tip. See the world view through your client's eyes, okay? I've talked very, very recently on this show about when I walk into a gas station, I see somebody is from Nepal or from Pakistan or from India somewhere, I ask them questions about their culture, where they came from. I'm interested in them. Well, all of a sudden they're leaning into me with curiosity because I'm interested in them. You think the last 30 guys that came in that gas station and dropped their money for, their Pop-Tarts or, their Mountain Dew or whatever asked that? No. Somebody took interest in them. They feel special. Sprinkle sunshine everywhere you go, okay? So, one of the parting words I said, there's one particular feed store that I connected to that's owned by I believe, Indian or a Bangladesh family now. It used to be owned by, some country Caucasian folks, which is common out in part of the world I live in now. But when I answer the phone to either the person that's a decision maker or the person who is the, the one that answers the phone, I think probably his wife, I say namaste because I understand their culture. If I know that I'm dealing with, they're likely of the Hindu faith or at least grew up in India, and that's a very common word over there, okay? If it's somebody that I know is from Pakistan or somewhere in the Middle East, which is predominantly Islamic, I'll say inshallah. And that can be used by Palestinian Christians or anybody else that is a Christian in the Middle East. Because in Arabic, that just means if God wills it, it will be done. If God wills it, it will be done. And when you can relate in their language, their native tongue, that they at least grew up with one of the many languages they grew up, because America is like the only place that we don't learn multiple
there are
languages.
Objects on road ahead.
We don't feel like we need to. It's a sign of respect. It's a sign of I understand you and I'm trying to understand your perspective of what's going on in your brain. All right? But it's not as obvious as that. It's basically just a sign of real recognizes real. That's the best way I can put that. Snoop Dogg would say, gangster recognizes gangster. Other people might say, I don't know. Just, whatever. Something is, I see you in me, and I see me in you. And when you begin to see that we're all connected, that we're all in this together, we all face the same human conditions, such as old age, sickness, and death. We cannot escape those in this lifetime. Only one person's been able to do that. You know what that is, I'm pretty sure. We begin to see the world through the other person, through the consumer, through the client, the upset person, the friendship, the romantic partnership, whatever we're involved in. We begin to see the world through their perspective. So reframing your perspective to see the world through their perspective and not just worry about you. The thing is, we're so self-centered as humans, we always, care about, that's the reason why most people don't care about your problems, they've got problems of their own, they can't invest themselves in fixing your problems, they got to fix their problems,
There are police reported ahead.
And so that's the whole point of this, is reframing the perspective. Understand why they feel that way. Understand. Again, it goes back to one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. That's one of the things I live by every single day in every relationship, every interaction. Understand that the single mom at the grocery store, or there's a checker at the grocery store, is dealing with struggles that you may never deal with. Having that empathy of, I understand you and I understand where you're coming from and I understand why you're upset. You know what I'm saying? And in some cases, you can even get upset with them if it's something that you both don't have control over. Austin traffic, that's a good example for me. I was just in it earlier this week. Austin traffic's just horrible, and you just kind of get upset to the point to where they escalate their upsetness, I don't even know what word I'm using, their anger towards something because you're angrier than they are. That's another tactic you can use, is just agree with them. And agree, this is just horrible, this is just awful. And, at that point, you kind of drop the midnight radio DJ voice, and you kind of do the whole, hey, I understand where you're coming from because this is ridiculous. And again, laugh a little bit and smile. People can tell when you smile over the phone. Ask anybody who does phone work for a living, Anybody can tell if you're in a good mood or a bad mood when you answer the phone. Don't answer the phone all monotone. Don't go into a conversation that needs, some smoothing over with hi, how are you doing? It's a friendly tone, because everybody loves a good friend. Friendship is the highest form of love as well, okay? Jesus himself, not to relate all this to biblical texts, but I use this more as a teaching tool, not as a tool of faith necessarily on this show. There's no greater love than for a brother to lay his life down for another brother. And that, of course, was in the context of that time. That was translated from, Hebrew speech to Greek text, then to, I guess it was King James, or whatever version of the Bible you want to read that text in. But, it's been translated a couple of times. But the message is pretty true. The message is very true. That is the highest form of love. Become a friend to somebody, And again, be the Greaseman.
There are stalled vehicles ahead.
Be the Greaseman to somebody in your life who needs a Greaseman, who needs to be advocated for, who needs your help, whether it's a business you work with or a business you work for, if you're an employee of that business, and use these tactics to help you win, But I don't want you to necessarily win. I want you to come to a resolution, okay? It's not about winning or losing or anything like that. Everybody shakes hands at the end of the day and walks away from that conversation, whether virtually these days, post-COVID, or physically. And, they have a good feeling. They have a resolution. You've resolved things for your personal or business matters, and everything's okay. But the whole point is how to de-escalate, and that's what we talked about on the show. And I hope you took notes. If you didn't, take some mental notes. You can always go back and listen to the show. It'll be up forever. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But like I say, this will be up for a long time, so you can refer back to this. But that is how I became the resident Greaseman. Those tips, tactics, everything else that I've taught on this show is some of the great stuff that I use to smooth things over, win people's heart over, whatever the case may be. It's not always going to work. Sometimes nothing works, Sometimes somebody is so far gone that they're not going to give you a second chance, okay? But go into there with your best foot forward, okay? Go into the war room, so to speak, whether it's virtual or physical, in a situation that may have gone sideways for you or somebody else, may be your fault or not. Take accountability, take responsibility. Not that it was your fault. Sure, you know that. But that you're there to provide a solution. Hey, it's your best friend, Dustin Vaughn Warncke. Check me out. Links will be at the end of the show. DustinsBooks.com if you want to check out some of my books. Some of the books that will soon be released. Been releasing some books for some other authors on my page as well, and connecting to them as a contributing editor or whatever the case may be. And yeah, like I said, DustinsProjects.com, Dustin's businesswithdustin.com. DustinsPodcast.com. Now, you can find this podcast on any kind of podcast player, most likely. It is syndicated virtually everywhere. But if you want kind of the hub of where this is actually produced, it's on Podbean, which you can get to, at least at this point, until I build a website for the podcast, or for both of my podcasts, DustinsPodcast.com. All right, thank you guys so much. Peace out. Love you all. Best friend forever, Dustin, signing off. Have the best day ever.
Thank you for listening to The Empowered Life with Dustin Vaughn Warncke. To learn more about Dustin, please visit his creator hub at dustinsprojects.com. Warncke Enterprises, Dustin's very own digital services company, can be found at businesswithdustin.com, and his books are available at either website or at dustinsbooks.com. Audio presentations of each of Dustin's latest books can be found on YouTube and streamed at no cost. Please subscribe to the Empowered Life podcast on your favorite podcast app, and thank you for your support and sharing this show with a friend.